The board will convene to closed session. Thank you. Report out from closed session. Live streaming on YouTube will begin now for the open session of the Board of Education meeting. The URL for the YouTube live streaming may be found on New Haven Junior School District Board of Education webpage just before the meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. If you are joining us online via Zoom webinar and you would like to provide public comment for this meeting, you may do so by utilizing the raise your hand option in Zoom. Or if you are calling in by phone, please press *9 and wait to be called on. Community members may provide public comments to the board prior to each meeting by email at publiccomment@nhusd.k12.ca.us. There were no comments provided to the board for tonight's meeting via public comment email address. I would like to remind the public that board will not be responding to the questions posed by those making public comments. Relative to closed session items, number 3.1 to 3.4 and number 3.6, there was no action taken by the board. Relative to item number 3.5, the board in closed session by unanimous vote voted to approve the settlement agreement between the district and number 1 student. Thank you. May I ask our student board member to lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Can you hear me?
The United States of America,
Hold
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
on. Okay.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman
Oye,
Gonzalez. Here.
pues vamos a empezar.
Here. Yeah. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's modified agenda. There was one error in the personal item. If you take a look at the list provided to you on page. Yeah, page 3 after this. Yeah. That was an error, so that is the modification. So I'm asking you to move and say a second to approve tonight's modified agenda. Okay. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman.
Aye.
Candace.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihiro.
Aye.
Mallory.
Aye.
Shima.
Aye. Agenda item number 5.4. I would like someone to volunteer to read the land acknowledgement. Okay, go ahead, Member Dennis, thank you.
The land acknowledgement will be read at this time. We want to open up this meeting by acknowledging with respect and love that the land we are today is the traditional ancestral homeland of the Ohlone Chilcanyo First People. We recognize and thank the Ohlone people as the original stewards of the land, this land. Indigenous people must not be spoken about in the past context as if they left on their own accord, and the real causes were the white supremacy, manifest destiny, and U.S. colonization. By recognizing and stand on the occupied indigenous territory of the Ohlone people, we will recommit ourselves to listen to Native leadership, stand in solidarity with people struggling against systems of oppression throughout the world, past and present.
Thank you. Moving on, agenda item number 6.1. Are there any blue cards for topics that are not on the agenda? Okay, are there any speakers via Zoom that wish to address the board on topics that are not on the agenda? If someone is listening or participating through Zoom, please raise your hands now. Please see. Okay, being no speakers, so we're moving on to agenda item number 7.1. Are there any blue cards for topics on the agenda? No cards, okay. Are there any speakers via Zoom that wish to address the board for topics on the agenda? No speakers, okay, there being no speakers, we are moving on to agenda item number 8. 1.1, update on in-person instruction, Superintendent.
Thank you. I thought it would be a good time, now that we're about 6 weeks into the school year, to kind of share with you where we are in a variety of different areas. So I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation. And there we go. So we'll cover just a couple quick things, some general updates. I'll talk about what I've learned about where we are locally in terms of the COVID and its impacts in our community, testing and quarantine update, and a vaccination update, where we're at with the mandates that way. So just some general updates. As you know, we had our State of the District event last week, and the link to that is on our website. The Year 1 update is also, I think it'll be getting out to all of our schools and all of our other office locations sometime, I think, later this week. Is that, or maybe next week? On their way today, look at that. So if you want more information about that. Staffing, I thought you've probably heard that across the state, there are staffing problems all over the place. And I thought I'd just give you a quick update on that. We've spent a lot of money. We allocated about $800,000 in additional funds to increase certificated staffing to try to make sure that we kept class sizes smaller. And we spent about double that, we think, in terms of the additional certificated staffing to address things like moving into the PLA, trying to avoid combination classes, trying to keep our classes at the secondary smaller. There's no spacing mandate that you don't have to have any distance between, there's no distance requirement, but we've generally tried to staff to allow for a minimum of 3 feet of distance between students, even though it's not required. So that we've spent a lot of time and energy and money to do that. And we've been pretty successful in hiring our certificate staff. We've had a couple vacancies as people have moved, maternity leaves, things like that, but their staff and personnel has done a good job of filling those gaps. Paras are probably where we have the biggest staffing challenges, with paras that are out, finding substitute paraeducators, finding permanent replacements for existing positions. That's been a challenge, and I believe that our next board meeting will be bringing a contract to provide some additional staffing support from an agency, because we're struggling to that degree. That is not unique to us by any means, but Sarah and her department done a good job trying to get creative with utilizing the resources we have. Substitute teachers are, of course, another big challenge that all districts are facing. You have before you in the action item tonight a recommended increase in the sub rate, so that's coming a little bit later. Enrollment. Let's take a look at where we are from an enrollment perspective. So this is as of yesterday. We were projected this year to have 10,520 students, and that was including, in that number is the projected decline of 250 kids from last year. We've been losing about 250 kids a year pretty continuously, so that was built into the projection. We have currently enrolled close, but not quite there, 10,457. But the Family and Student Services Department has 54 students that are still trying to get in. So they are, we continue to get a stream of people that are trying to enroll in our schools, which is great. So if you add those two together, we come pretty close to our projected number. And while we're not happy about losing 250 kids, making sure that from budgetary purposes, we're projecting on where the number of students that we're building into our projections and the students we actually have, that's the most important number. And you've probably heard from surrounding districts, I think Fremont was down well over, I think it was close to 1,400 kids. I don't know if they're still down that much. San Lorenzo at one point was down 1,000 students. So we are, and I don't know where Hayward's at, but that we, relatively speaking, are in a pretty good place compared to some of our neighbors, which is great. And I know Marcus's department over in the Family and Student Services has really been trying to get kids in and keep them moving and all that. So that's been very helpful. Independent studies right now is, as of Monday, we had about 452 students in our PLA, Personalized Learning Academy, and then in the co-school for independent studies, another 136. So we have almost 600 kids in our independent studies programs this year. So that's been good. So last Thursday, I was in a call with the Alameda County Public Health Officer, Dr. Nate Moss, and he was sharing some relatively good news that case rates across Alameda County are dropping in all categories. That hospitalizations are virtually all adults. There are very few children that are in hospitals right now for COVID-related reasons. And almost all of the new cases are appearing in the unvaccinated population. This was as of Thursday. And in his words, we're not out of the woods yet, but we're looking good right now. So we all know that can change, but that's at least, and I think we saw some of that reflected in the drop in cases that in positive test cases we had in our district, and I'll show you that coming up. So for the first 3 weeks of school, we averaged 15.7 positive test cases. And what that means is students that came to us in one way or the other, we became aware that they had tested positive for COVID. So in the fourth week, we had 18 students, and last week we had 7, which was great. And the weeks run from, the week ended for us on Friday, and then on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I'm sorry, I'll get to that. So for the first 5 weeks, we had a total of 72 cases, and those were 65 students and 7 staff members, and that was as of Friday. So that's out of 10,500 students and another probably 1,200 employees. So, you're looking at about 12,000 people in our system, and only 72 cases in 5 weeks across the entire system. So that's not, it's not, relatively speaking, not a lot. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I wanted to give you the most current up-to-date numbers. So we have 6 cases so far over the weekend and as of yesterday. So that's the latest numbers. And you'll see our dashboard updated to reflect. We've been doing the updates weekly. So that will be updated by no later than Friday. So that's where we're at from positive test cases. And we have, the nice thing is, because when we get the test cases, we have not been able to definitively confirm any school spread, which is good. So that means that cases come to us from the community, but we've done our mitigation measures are working to keep that spread from going amongst students and staff, which is great. That's the reason why out of all the approximately 12,000 people in our system, we've only had 72 reported cases that we've been able to narrow down. So one of the reasons why is we use quarantine a lot, and of those 72 cases, they generated 1,800 contact letters, and those are letters that go out to people that may have come into close contact with one of those 72 people. And it's hard to know exactly how many of those kids ended up in quarantine, because there are sometimes those letters have been given to the same student have received more than one letter. Some of our students are vaccinated and didn't have to quarantine. So, then this is a very rough guess that we've had approximately 1,000 students that in the last 5 weeks, going into 6 weeks, have come in and out of quarantine at one point or another. And it happens daily as people come off of quarantine and go into quarantine. It's been a real challenge to try to manage. And so far, we've had 0 staff members in quarantine. The staff members we've had come in close contact with someone who tested positive have all been vaccinated and asymptomatic, which means that they don't need to quarantine. That's an update on that. We have voluntary surveillance testing for COVID available 5 days a week at James Logan High School for staff and students. And we have mandatory required testing for all of our athletic teams because they're interacting with kids from other districts, so they all have to get tested once a week. And there's no charge for testing, as you know. So far, we've tested almost 4,000 students and 380 staff members. So it's hard, even though it's not, we don't have systematic or structured testing, surveillance testing. We've covered, about more than a third of our student population granted, some of those have tested multiple times because they're athletes, but a fairly good number, and about a third of our staff. Okay, so early on, in August, we had asked people to self-attest whether or not they were vaccinated, and at that point in time, we had about 62% of our people respond to that survey, and of those 62% that responded, almost all of them were vaccinated, 97%. Shortly thereafter, though, the vaccine mandate came in, where it was you're either required to provide vaccination proof or provide a negative COVID test. And we are in the process of compiling all of that information. Right now, we have 690 people that have submitted confirmed vaccination status, which is about, it's probably more, but conservatively about 58% of our staff. And we have until October 15th to verify the status of every employee. So we got about a month to go, and we have, over, almost 2/3 of our staff that we have accounted for. So the other thing that we're asking the board to just reapprove is the latest version of our COVID plan. We're calling it the in-person instruction plan, and it's updated to include the new vaccination requirements. The last time the board approved it was August 3rd. You've approved this plan now, I don't know how many times, I've lost track, but you approved it on August 3rd. We're asking you to reapprove it again tonight with these different updates. The new vaccination requirement, we made a tweak to reflect our current practice of disinfecting all classrooms on a daily basis, and then cleaning them, spot cleaning them, and then it was the other way around in the original document. And then there's a testing section that we need to update to reflect our current practice, and there's some formatting changes. So that comes to the board as an action item a little later in the agenda. And that is it. That's our COVID update.
Thank you for your update. I know this is an information item only, but is there any questions?
Yeah, going back to the people who tested positive, I think it's page 3. Except for the ones that are recent, are all the people who were positive okay now? Are they back in our system, our schools?
The positive test cases. I believe all of except for potentially the brand new cases.
Right.
I'm gonna look at staff. I don't know, Derek, if you have an update on that, or.
And so at this point, all the students that we know of, we haven't had any cases that we're aware of that students hospitalized or all back to school. There was one employee who was hospital over at System Providence and one over at Logan. And so the back one at System Providence, one at Logan, so I'm just getting out. We've been approved for that.
Okay, that was good, because that was my next question, if anybody was hospitalized. My other question is, for the testing, I know it's open for all the staff members and all of the families. Are board members staff?
You were definitely staff. Or you run the district, so yes, you would be able to go and get testing there.
Okay.
I'll give you a note if you need to.
Thank you so much.
That's good to know. Thank you for asking, Trustee Alice. I'm glad to know that, because you have mentioned, I think 58% or something of the staff has, they are already vaccinated, but that was, I think, sometimes that information, and up to 15 is the, but I think yesterday or so, somewhere in the news, I read it that a high number of our staff is already vaccinated, so I was feeling so good about that we believe in science.
Yes, yeah, we do have, granted that, we have about close to 60% of our staff that have reported. And of the 690 confirmations, I believe those are all people who have verified their vaccinations, right? So, yeah, we know we have at least at this point 690 people that are working with our that are vaccinated. And then, we'll get more, that number will change as we get closer, but we have a little time to go. We have about a month to go, but we're at the rate we're going, we should have this done before the October, well before the October.
So who performed the testing in our unit?
Our testing is done by an outside vendor, and let's see, that's
National labs.
National Lab is doing all of our testing.
So the hours for them is at the school hours or?
10 to 6,
10?
10 to 6.
Oh, I
10 to
see.
6:30.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Trustee Gonzalez?
Yeah, so just to piggyback on that point of testing that trustee Pamela brought up. Last week at our event at Logan, the state of the district event. Well, I'm not too sure what we called it, but
Yeah, that's right.
state of the district. I actually tested for the very first time ever, and National did a wonderful job, and so I got the results within a week. And as opposed to my colleagues, and again, I'm always, what's the gate, how I gauge our district is my neighboring district in Hayward Unified School District, my employer. And so theirs, it took a week. So I gotta give us credit. I'll be critical when we can do better, but we're on HUSD with our testing, the results. And another thing is our dashboard. Our website is very current. They're actually a week behind. I just checked it again. And ours is more user friendly. Our chart is up there. Our dashboard is looking better than theirs. So I got to give our district credit for that and give us praise for that. So that's it.
Thank you. That was Mr. Hermanos who created that space. Thank you for that, John.
Thank you. Trustee Thomas?
He's working for Hamilton. My other question is, the vaccination. I know that there will be vaccinations available for ages 5 to 10 and boosters, third shot for the rest. Will the district be providing, the vaccinations on sites, or will there be a site that might have that?
Well, it's, that was part of my, this is good, part of my superintendent's remarks will be cut short a little bit, but it's good because we are currently, Jen Hawkins, who works in the Union City Family Center, has been working with, Tercio Vasquez to combine efforts with vaccination. So we actually have vaccination dates coming up, the 15th, tomorrow, at James Logan High School, from 1 to 5, they're providing free vaccinations. And then on the 22nd at IDCMS, we'll be also providing, partnering with them to provide vaccinations from 1 to 5. So that we'll be getting that out to the community as well. And I know that the UC Family Center has also been promoting that as well. So we are partnering when we can with outside agencies. Right? We obviously can't stick needles in arms, but the people that can, we try to partner with them to provide that services here.
Those are for students in ages 5 to 11.
Students, no, I'm sorry. This is for students. There's no vaccination right now for those students.
Right, that's why I'm.
No, I'm sorry. This is just for vaccinations in general. And from what I'm hearing, it looks like around, if all goes well, the Pfizer vaccine may be available around October, around Halloween. And again, we would be partnering with outside agencies to provide those.
And similar for the third.
If they decide that this is a good idea, then we will provide it. Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. So remember, can you please, take your place? Thank you.
Thank you. As a student myself, I'm curious, what's the requirement, like, when you go on quarantine as a student? If you're not asymptomatic, if you're quarantined for 2 weeks, if your vaccination status is, you've been vaccinated, what does that entail of for a student returning if they have close contact with a positive case?
Right now, if you're a vaccinated student and you're asymptomatic, you don't have to quarantine. So that's helpful. If you are not vaccinated, then you may have to quarantine. It kind of depends. There's 3 different ways you can quarantine. And it would be up for a maximum of 10 days, including weekends. So you might miss, in the worst case scenario, 8 school days and you've had it quarantine.
And with missing those 4 days, our staff still providing options for the students to learn virtually, correct?
We're working on that right now. We've been partnering with NHTA to see if we can come up with a solution that's better than what right now you have access at secondary level to all of your instruction on campus and through other means. So you can still get your material, but we're working with NHT to see if we can make that even more robust and better right now, so.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Agenda item number 8.2, presentation of the 2021 unaudited actuals financial report. Our CBO.
Can you all hear me? Oh, the mic works. Great. I don't have a teacher voice, so I'm going to use the microphone. So good evening, everyone, to our viewers, to our superintendent, Thompson, and also to our board members. So we concluded closing of our year-end financials for 2021. And I will walk you through some of those highlights. So this is the education code or the authority that says we have to do this by September 15. I'm not going to read it, but that's just to say that this one, the law that tells us what we must do by this date every year. So when we're looking at the profile of the financials that we are closing, we are profiling to you or for you the actual revenues, the actual expenses, the actual ending balances for all the funds. Our focus, of course, is on our operating budget, which is the general fund, and that's what we would be spending most of our time on. So as you can see, this shows the different sources of our general fund revenue. The blue section, of course, comes from local control funding formula, which is really comprised of state aid and local taxes. About 38% of that 101 million comes from your property taxes. The balance of about 62% comes from the state. And of course, we do get money from federal sources. That's your Title I. And this past year, we did get some federal one-time dollars. So those are all part of the red section of the pie. And then we get some state revenue and also some local dollars. So we just wanted to profile where the money comes from in our operating budget. When closing the books, we want to compare the numbers to the last time that we updated our finances. And as you can see here, those two data points of unaudited actuals, which are the numbers now, and the last time that we updated our numbers was the estimated actuals. There is a drop of nearly 7 million in our revenue. Now, don't be alarmed, because that drop really is simply an accounting treatment of some of the revenues that in the state's way of looking at things are unearned because we didn't spend them. And when you don't spend certain revenues by June 30th, when you close the books, we have to defer them to the next year. So that nearly 7 million is really comprised of the ESSER 3 money, the E-log money, which really is the majority of it. And as you may remember, those two pots of one-time monies really didn't get authorized by the state until March this year. So, you can't spend too much money, so little time. And the difference is really the adjusted calculation for the STRS on behalf that we have to do every year. So that's what comprises the $7 million. So after talking about the revenue, this is our general fund expenditures and transfers. So we break it down by the different expenditure categories, as you can see. We actually further break it down as requested by this board a few years ago in terms of the different salary level for the different employee groups. So as you can see, the darker blue section is our certificated non-management, and then we have the classified non-management in the red section, and then the green in terms of the management, and then a small sliver of our unrepresented classified group, and so on. The other, the second biggest section there, as you can see, is employee benefits, and that's a blended number because there are different rates for different employee groups, and that actually is a separate line item as far as reporting to the state. But this just shows you how do we spend our money? The previous slide shows where is our money coming from. This is how do we spend our money. As requested by the board also, we added some information in terms of, what is the ratio of our salary and benefit costs to our total expenses. And as you can see in that, I think there's a pointer here, I don't know how to use it, but you can see in a little box on the upper right corner, we're saying that in the combined general fund, remember you have your unrestricted and your restricted, 88% of that money is spent on personnel and on salaries and benefits. When we extract unrestricted alone, 91% of that is a higher ratio. So those are the information that usually are requested, so we wanted to put them in the slide. So this is similarly, I'm comparing the two data points between unaudited actuals and estimated actuals. And in terms of that, it's a reduction of 2.4. Now, 1.3 of that is, I talked about this earlier, the STRS on behalf calculation. So really, most of it is coming from that. This is simply comparing what we said when we were doing our estimated actuals in terms of expenditures and what we are looking like now that we've closed the books. So the previous sections in terms of what got dropped in revenue and what got dropped in expenses results to the $4.5 million reduction in ending balance. Now, it's a net reduction, as you can see there. When you look at your unrestricted, it's actually better because there's an improvement of 2.7 million. In other words, the last reporting period, we said our unrestricted side of the general fund, we will end with 21.3 million. However, now that we just finished closing the books, we are ending with 24 million. Now, the restricted side, I don't really put a lot of attention there because those are usually slated, well, not usually, but those are slated for the programs that they were authorized for by the state or the federal. But in terms of the 2.7 million, 1 million of that really is a redirection of the contribution that we had to make for our Kids First program. So when you think about it, when you net that out, the improvement to our ending balance is really only the 1.7 million, and that's generated from, as we progress through the year, there are savings that were falling in the bottom line, contracts that we didn't have to use, services that we didn't have to use, set aside in salary line or substitutes that got dropped off the bottom line. So that's how this happens by the time we're closing the books. When we look at what our ending balance is in general fund by, it's another GASB pronouncement. By that GASB pronouncement, we do have to designate them in these different line items. So as you can see, all of it is do you see the 24 million in the unrestricted side, and of course the 9.3 million on the restricted side. And this is just saying this is how it is divvied up. We have some certain obligations for revolving cash and all of those things. We have obligation for the state required reserve of 3.2 million. And the rest, of course, are in the line item that we rely on in terms of the near term with regards to declining revenues and increasing expenses. Now, with regards to the economic, the reserve for economic uncertainties is required by the state. That number really is 3.9 million. In general fund, I'm only setting aside 3.2 million because the other 600,000 or 700,000 is set aside in Fund 17 because we are leveraging the excess of the money from the Cabello sale. So that's helping us in that way. The restricted side, like I said, those are slated for programs that they were given to us for. Now, this is a table that we started tracking a few years ago. Essentially, what we're looking at is, since year one of LCFF, how do we look like in terms of what we estimate as the ending balance in unrestricted and what we actually closed with in terms of the ending balance and unrestricted. And as you can see, the variance on all the way to the last column are, within, well, the highest is 6% until 1819. And we haven't had a normal year since 1819, and therefore those disparities are larger. In the, when we close the book, there are certain standards and compliance that we have to meet, and these are those. I'm not going to read them to you, but just as a note, the current cost of education, which is the first line, there are actually some districts who are having a hard time meeting that. We meet the threshold is 55%. So these, we also had, we were struggling to meet the SEMA and the SIMBA. I call them the SEMA and the SIMBA, which is the maintenance of effort for special ed. And with a lot of work and machinations and creativity and combing through things, we were able to meet those this year. So that was presentation of our unaudited actuals. These are what happens next from this point forward. We are waiting for, as mentioned earlier, in terms of the enrollment numbers, because that does, even though we are still in the whole harness in terms of average daily attendance, we still need to track that enrollment because we are continuing to decline and we project to continue to decline. And the next time that we will present to you with the updated multi-year projections, that will be in December. Now, mind you, the report that you are going to be presented for adoption tonight is simply a report of 1 year, one single year, which is the year that we closed. It does not have multi-year projections, and that will happen as part of first interim. So these sets of numbers will be audited. That work's going to happen next month. After that, they would be submitted to the state controller's office and will be reported to you. That is our independent audit. Will be reported to you sometime in January. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Annette Hellman, for your comprehensive report. If there are any questions or comments from any of the board members. Trustee Nishio.
I wanted to thank you and staff for putting together an excellent report. One question that I have is, and I know I'm kind of asking you to look at the crystal ball. What effect do you think our quarantine level of quarantine might have on our health performance? And have you thought about that at all?
So this is actually a big topic. We had a long discussion about this. At this point, there is no ability. We were hoping that there would be a waiver for something like this, and that kind of went out the door. In fact, I think Dr. Thompson was probably the best person to explain this because it's been a big topic for cabinet as well and for leadership.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you want me, I can, yes. Yeah, the loss of ADA from quarantine is right now, nothing changes at the legislative level. It's going to be significant for every district in the state. And if we've had, let's just say 1,000 days of attendance so far that have been lost ADA, I mean, what is that? And that's
For every day of absence of a student, it's about $53 in ADA that we lose.
So that's right there, about $500,000 over there, and just the loss already. So it would be, if nothing changes, it'll be a significant loss, not just to us, but to every district in the state, unless some districts have come up with a way of managing short-term independent study that no daniel has thought of. So we're still working for that and looking for solutions.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we are looking to make sure that we do, unless something happens at the state level, is to make sure we have to designate for this loss because we know it's a real loss until something happens in terms of quarantine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Having no further question or comment, then item number 9 does not have any content or any numbers. So under item 10.1, annual investment report for the fiscal year 2021. Ms. Hellman again.
So, is it working? Oh, there you go. So this is simply an information item, and quite frankly, we don't have any investments. What you're seeing in this report are simply the cash that are held in the county treasury. from each of the different funds. And so by law, we have to report them to our board, to the public.
Thank you. Any question coming from the board members? None. Next agenda item is 10.2, local control accountability plan. There's one question, Mr. Pajani.
Yeah, I can answer that if you want. This is simply, as you know, we've had to, like many districts in the county, had to have to bring back the LCAP for formal approval. It's on the agenda tonight. Part of that process is the county asking us questions about our LCAP and us providing them with answers, and we're obligated to provide those questions and answers publicly, just as an information item. And that's all that is. So unless anybody has questions about questions, there's nothing more to add.
Thank you so much. Very extensive question and answer. So, any questions or comments on this item? Thank you. Okay, then item number 10.3, student data from the corporate university of Thompson.
I can give you just a quick update on that. We had a board request. We have started the process of looking at data for the Dakota region. Thanks, guys. I didn't ask for that, but it is there. There's a little PowerPoint with just a few slides. So we're looking at isolating the geographic region of the Dakota area, as you know, and then looking at the students that reside in that area and seeing how they're performing relative to the rest of the students in the district. And we have looked at data for attendance, discipline, A through G requirements, and the graduation rate. In two of the, as far as graduation rate and A through G requirements going, when we pulled the data, we found inconsistencies in the data from what we have, what we generated, and what we report to the state. So we're in the process of figuring that out. And what we do have is the data related to chronic absenteeism and also student disciplinary action. And if you can dig deeper into that data, this is just an information item to show that we're making progress towards meeting this goal. And when we get all of the other categories figured, when we reconcile the other categories, we'll have a more in-depth look at this. Literally this data was generated and finalized Friday. So if we haven't had a deep chance to dig into it, I will say that it's one of the things that did jump out of us for attendance. You can see the blue line is the students that reside in the Dakota area, and then the lines below are all students together in the yellow line, and then students that are not residing in the Dakota area. And you can see that even though the chronic absenteeism was higher through that period, there was they were following each other in parallel tracks fairly well along until COVID did. And I think what you can see here is that COVID had a disproportionate effect on families that reside in the Dakota area in terms of their students being able to engage in instruction. This is no surprise to us. Last year, the principals that have schools in the Dakota area, Searles, Emmanuel, Hillview Crest, Chavez, primarily, even though students from the Dakota go to all kinds of different, all of the different schools, but those are the primary feeder schools. The principals in those schools and the administration there and the family center really tried to engage with those students that weren't attending school regularly. And what they found, quite frankly, was those families were suffering some pretty significant hardship. And conversations, really sad ones, such as, well, I'll get my kids into Zoom when I don't have to, when I don't have to go take care of whatever, or I don't have to get back from my job, or I don't have to take care of somebody else. And it's some pretty sad stories. And there was, as a school agency, there's only so much we can do, and I think we went above and beyond to try to engage those families between the family center and the schools. But again, you can see the disproportionate effect that way. So this is good data. It's good to see. And, while I don't know what we could have done differently, if we ever got into a similar situation in the future, we could at least know that this is something that we might expect. So that jumped out. The discipline data is a little bit hard to compare because, for example, last year, I wish we could report our suspension and expulsion data from last year every year, because we didn't have any. We had a total of 5 suspensions last year. One of them was from a student in the Dakota area. So if you were to look at the data, it looks like they were 20% of the kids that were suspended in our district cluster were from Dakota, but that 20% is one student. So it's, the data is quite skewed because of COVID. But anyway, over time, when we get this data tracking mechanism in place, we should be able to generate some good longitudinal data, not just in these 2 categories, but in the other categories as well. So again, this is just a very surface level look at it. We're going to do a deeper dive in it in October. The Ed Service Department is going to be presenting a kind of an overview of a lot of different things, and we may try and dovetail some of this in there. We'll see how that goes. We can do some of it too. This was we're going to go on next time. Good. Anyway, more to come on that.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Gonzalez?
Yeah, so just to clarify, this is just Logan, we're tracking the high school level, or are we going all the way from elementary?
Oh, no, it's K-12.
It's K-12, okay, so possibly one of the reasons the Cesar telling us that the high rate for chronic absentees is the no bus service to get to school. That could be a possibility.
Yeah, it's, if you're looking at non-COVID years, I think that might be something that we could take a look at. I haven't, again, we just got the data Friday, and so we haven't had a chance to dive into it. But, certainly, the farther you are from a school, the less likely it is you're going to be able to get there, particularly if you have some hardships.
Could I ask the staff to look into possibility busing? I don't know. What is the remedy for this?
I'm not sure. We'll have to, I think we need to take a deeper dive into the data and see what it looks like. Again, COVID last year was really, when if the attendance was a lot worse when they didn't even have to go to school, the busing wouldn't have helped, right? So I think we need to take a look at the years prior to that and then see if there wasn't a appreciable distance at Chavez in particular. That we just simply haven't had a chance to do that. But that's a good area. Pointing us in that direction, we'll be able to figure out if there is a problem, and then we can talk about potential remedies to that.
Just a comment. Thank you so much to the staff and superintendent to getting this data together. And I look forward to seeing the deep dive and all the different details that we're going to have in the future. And what did you say was the timeline on that?
We should be able, I'm hoping we'll get the data for the K-2 requirements and the grad rate cleaned up by our next, when we have the October presentation that is on a lot of the other performance indicators that we have. I'm hoping that we'll have that data and we'll be able to take a little deeper look at the data, this data as well at that meeting. And I know we're also looking at some other indicators such as performance on our local assessments and WEA and some of the other areas as well. So I'm not sure where we are with that, but ideally we can present it in a bigger package in October.
Okay. Thank you so much. I know it was a tedious work, but thank you so much for doing it. I appreciate that. Next agenda item is 10.4 item from the board and superintendent. We will start with our student board member and then Dr. Thompson that will give us kind of less that answer board member. Thank you.
Right now, Logan, we're just working on club there. I know I invited, member Mallory to come and check us out this Thursday. If there's anyone that would like to, we did have one today, there's one on Thursday. We're just trying to get more people to join type of thing. Logan and I were just not familiar with the decorated campus based off for a school and class team. Superintendent Thompson came and checked it out. We have our school team of Marvel class team for Spider-Man, the seniors, Iron Man, juniors, Guardians of the Galaxy, and sophomores and freshmen for Black Panther. Just doing things like that, kind of, I guess you could say, bring the spirit and the vibe for Logan, being that things haven't, been the easiest over Zoom. Otherwise, just different things like that. I know I've been working with Mr. Polk at Logan for any Logan student that wants to review or not review, wants to bring like any concerns that they have, it's like an open town hall type of thing that will go in kind of an alignment of the student initiatives committee that I have started at Logan. Other than that, just trying to influence students, give them community service hours, especially our juniors and seniors that need them to graduate. They can do that through Logan Land, and then, we have dates for budgeting with things and hoping that we can continue to move forward. And COVID, will not stop us with those events. And then we officially moved homecoming to October 29th, as October 15th is our, October holiday for the district. And so we will be doing, homecoming plus senior night, and then just the regular football game all in one night. So that'll be a long day for me, yeah, Logan, but otherwise that's it.
Yeah, just a couple comments tonight. Just thought I'd talk about traffic safety for a second. Yeah, obviously with the news of multiple traffic accidents around schools that have been happening recently, and then we had one of our students struck outside of Cyril's in a crosswalk. So I just want to remind all of our folks out there, please take a little extra time, drive safe around our schools. We've internally been reviewing all of our resources, and we contract, as you probably know, we signed a recruit contract with an outside crossing guard agency. So it's housed in our M&O department, and Mr. Rogers has been making sure that they're trying to provide us with staffing they're supposed to. They are also faced, like many agencies, with a staffing problem, and so we've been having trouble getting them to fill their positions every day. But it's something that, again, it's every kind of like we're having trouble with educators and substitutes. They're having some trouble with their staffing as well, which means that we have to allocate our own staff out there, and it's everybody's pretty taxed when it comes to that kind of supervision, principals, and everybody else. So again, families, parents, if you're listening, please take a few extra minutes, follow the rules. It'll help make our schools safer, our students safer, and help you avoid getting a ticket because the police do enforce traffic around schools more diligently, which we need. So again, drive safe, and students are safe, and there are no other problems. So there's that. And then my last item is just some thank yous. Mr. Pisani, thank you for the LCAP work. It was a most tedious LCAP process, given everything we've gone through. That will hopefully be overcome tonight. So thank you and your team for all that work. Let's see. As usual, and your team with being down one staff member for the unaudited actuals. Thank you again for you didn't miss a beat. Thank you for that. And then Mr. Matos and your department for the data, for the Dakota data, and for continuing to work on that as well. That's a lot of work. That's it for me.
Thank you. Any board members would like to volunteer? President.
I too would like to thank for the people. You make our job a lot easier because all the information that we need are readily available and communicated to us on a timely basis. I would like to include this minute with that list. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? And trustee.
Yeah, so since our last meeting, I finished my master's in government. Okay.
Oh, you can go.
Yeah, finished it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I haven't got my certificate yet. Need to email Lori about that. To see when I'll get it. And I just wanted to speak about, we had a student, as Dr. Thompson mentioned, Cyril, that was struck crossing the street. And of course, soon after the police department wrote a bunch of tickets to people, and they, from what I saw, they said that they were hitting the problem areas. So I just think it would be great if as a district we can work with the city and the police department to find where these problem areas are and reevaluate the flow of traffic together as a team to see what we can do to make drop off and pick up safer for our students. Because even one student who gets injured is one too many. And of course, I agree with Dr. Thompson, please take extra care around the schools when you're driving. you know, and take extra time, right? We've all gotten used to traffic being light during COVID. I know for myself, when school went back to session, I had to add at least 10 minutes to my commute and will continue to set my alarm earlier if necessary. So please do so if you're out there in the public and listening. Thank you.
Thank you. It's 7:30 PM and today is the voting day, so if you have not voted, the audience who are listening on Zoom, you can still up and offer and you can go vote. And then, part of the communication from the parents, some parents they have mentioned, they have the impression that PLA teachers, they are somewhere from the internet, they are not at local teachers. So I know we have been communicating a lot, but then still there is a more need to communicate that PLA teachers, they are our local teachers, so just, they're not random internet teachers. So, please make sure that you communicate again. Then, from my, Valley ROP, JPA funding, I think, I believe, superintendent from the ROP might have already spoken to you about the JPA funding, so that will be coming, to our agenda in the future. Trustee Gonzalez, go ahead.
Yeah, recently my district, whom I'm employed with, Hayward Unified School District, went back to school. We're like 2.5 weeks behind, the Hayward Unified School District. And, part of the problem going back, and so I just wanted to, my heart goes out to the staff that are dealing with this, to the families that are trying to navigate through this, pandemic, possible COVID, quarantine, we have to go through the flow chart, and what if, what do I do? And it's very difficult to navigate, and I'm experiencing it firsthand. And, our district has already experienced it, and I kind of seen, what exactly happened. And so, very difficult, a totally new dynamic, everything we have to learn, within our district. Very difficult, but I will say though that, this is one part where our superintendent this is his expertise. This is his strong suit, which is navigating, and this is something he's on and checking out the district, checking across the state, is our safety plan, and he's going through it. And so, thank you, Superintendent Thompson, for your work on this. I really feel confident, and I'll say it again, and I said it last time, but I feel good in our district that we actually have a really good plan. It's solid. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank the staff that are doing this, and then everybody, our entire staff that are experiencing this, and then also thank the parents and students who have to deal with this. So that's it.
Thank you. One more comment I forgot to make. Some parents, they have this concern that other parents, the kids might be COVID positive, but they are not sharing it with the teachers. Do we have anything related to that? Just out of the, maybe they feel ashamed or whatever reason, they just won't share that they do have COVID positive.
Well, any student that is potentially exposed is notified, and the families are notified. Every student that is potentially, and we don't make up these rules. These are rules given to us by the Alameda County Public Health Department. And so any student that was in close contact with somebody that tested positive for COVID has been notified. What we don't do is share the name of the student who was tested positive, because there are HIPAA related laws around that. So, but anybody, I mean, we've only had out of 12,000 people in our district, only 72 positive cases. So that there haven't been that many, relatively speaking. So anybody that was in close contact with any of those 72 people has been notified.
No, but if the student has COVID positive, but they don't disclose it in the class and keep coming, is there any consequences for that? If later on, you can find it out.
Oh, shoot, if they're not symptomatic, if they're symptomatic, you're gonna know.
Yeah.
But if there's somebody that's asymptomatic, then they probably aren't contagious anyway, so I don't know that we could ever know.
There was one parent, so this can be this one. Okay, thank you. Next, agenda item 11.1, reports from the Budget and Finance Committee, please. Member Dennis, Member Gonzalez.
There's nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Okay, I like that. 11.2, report from the Communication and Advocacy Committee. Commission and-
There's really nothing to report. We have a meeting this Thursday.
Oh, thank you. Report from the Policy Review Committee. Member Gonzalez and Member.
I believe that there is nothing to report. Our next meeting is next week, I believe, or no, it's this Thursday. Actually,
It's this one.
28.
Yeah.
there we go, it's coming up,
Okay.
Tuesday the 28th.
Yeah, and then I like the stuff you have sent us, all the members, the policies which the policy committee will be reviewing. So that's good for us to kind of review at the same time. Thank you. Appreciate that. And then item 11.4, any other committee? Okay, member Dennis?
Yeah, the September 23rd AXPA meeting has been changed from in person to Zoom for obvious reasons. So I'm kind of sad to report that we won't have the celebration and the band and the meeting everybody in person, especially the newly elected, they're stepping here and we're not seeing most of them in person. But the Zoom, you should have gotten an invite from Penny Tech from San Lorenzo by now. And the topic is obviously regarding anything related to the school opening, vaccine testing and so on in relation to the theme of equity, diversity, and harmony. It's almost an oxymoron with all the things happening, but we can make this work. So you should have the Zoom number. Please come and join us. It starts at 6 o'clock with networking via Zoom at 5:45. And then the speaker is for the Corral from Alameda County Office of Education corporate department. Thank you. We'll see you on Zoom.
I know I got the invite.
Thank you.
Thank you. And any other committee? No. Okay. Next agenda item is action items 12.1, resolution number 006 21 22 13 of American History Heritage 1. May I have a volunteer? Listen, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution number 010 2021. Is this correct?
And now,
Yeah. So we're going to do, I know we have like history month, October 2021. In the discussion, I would like to read the resolution first. Any volunteers? Okay, Trustee Dennis, please.
resolution number 006-2122, Filipino American History Month, October 2020. Whereas this is an appropriate time to promote and reflect on the richness of Filipino and Filipino American history and culture, and to provide all Americans with opportunity to learn and appreciate and honor the Filipino Americans and their historic and social contributions to the history of the United States. Whereas our New Haven Unified School District, the first in the nation to name a school after Filipino farm labor leaders, Larry, Leon, and Philip Vera Bruce. And whereas it is necessary to instill in our youth the importance of education, history, and ethnicity, in creating eminent role models, establishing a proud cultural identity, and producing exceptional citizens of the nation. And whereas the Filipino American National Historical Society established Filipino American History Month in 1988 and subsequently every October, several communities throughout the United States and territories have celebrated this occasion, commemorate the anniversary of the presence of the first Filipinos in U.S. soil, and to observe its heritage and recognize the social, intellectual, and economic contributions of Filipinos and Filipino Americans in this country. And whereas Filipino American servicemen and servicewomen have a long-standing history of serving to protect and defend this country in the armed forces from the Civil War to the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. And whereas the earliest documented evidence of Filipinos in continental United States occurred on October 18, 1587, and the mariners called Luzones Indios under Spanish command landed in Morro Bay, California. And whereas today, the Filipino American community, second largest Asian American group in the United States, with an estimated population of 3,400,000 people. And whereas our city of Union City has an estimated population of 14,000 Filipinos and Filipino Americans who have had a profound impact on California's history, values, and culture. And whereas the Filipino community played an important role in Union City's rich agricultural history, thereby helping to share its landscape. And whereas immigrants from the Philippines and their families truly have enriched our nation through their work in agriculture, their service in the armed forces, contributions of skills and expertise as engineers, scientists, accountants, teachers, lawyers, nurses, doctors, and their participation in public offices, civic affairs, and community activities. And whereas Filipino American History Month was first proclaimed by the 111th Congress of the United States in November 2009. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved that New Haven Unified School District hereby issues this proclamation in honor and recognition of the October 2021 as Filipino American History Month, passed and adopted by the following all votes 14 of September.
Thank you. Trustee Youngs.
So go ahead.
So, thank you, Trustee Candace, for reading the resolution. Any comments from any members?
Thank you for putting that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Candace,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Isidro,
Aye.
Mallory,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye. Agenda item number 12.2, adoption of 2021-2022 proposed budget and resolution number 065-2021 to address any budgetary shortfall in the multi-year analysis. I will see you on Acknowledgment.
Need to move in a second.
Yeah.
May I have a motion and a action item? So may I have a motion and a second to approve this action item 12.2, adoption of 2021 proposed budget?
So,
Seconds. Okay, thank you. Do you have any summary comments?
I can just remember, this has already been approved. We just have, we're required to approve it again. So there's nothing, it's just a simple required thing.
I see. Any questions and comments on the board? Okay, roll call, please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Candace,
aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Isidro,
Aye.
Mallory,
Aye.
Steve.
Okay, action item number 12.3, approval of local control accountability plan as drafted, all sections. Zone.
Again, just a move in a second.
Right, hold on. This is, the maybe I have to update this. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve, the item number 12.3, approval of local control accountability plan as drafted, all sections. Second. Discussion, please. Is there anything new presentation on you? Okay. No questions or comments from government? Okay, roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye.
Tima.
Aye. 12.4, agenda item number approval of in-person instruction plan. May I have a motion and a second to approve this action item approval of in-person instruction plan. Second. I know there was a presentation from that before. Is there any new points?
Yeah, just what was covered in
Any
the,
comments? No? Thank you. Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye.
Tima.
Agenda item number 12.5, resolution number 003/2122, establishment of Fund 08, Student Activity Special Revenue Fund. May I have a motion and a second?
So
Okay. Any comments or questions, staff, is there any update? I mean, the comments section was pretty, the presentation was pretty, straightforward. No? Okay, thank you. Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye. Aye. Agenda item number 12.6, resolution number 004/2122, resolution declaring the field area at Holy Tabor High School as exempt surplus land. May I have a motion and a second to approve this section?
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions? So my questions and comments, they were addressed, on the top. Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye.
Tima.
12.7, resolution number 009/2122, board members' absence from meeting due to a family emergency, authorization to pay. May I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 009/2122, board members' absence from meeting due to personal necessity, authorization to pay.
So moved.
Discussion, questions, comments? Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye.
Tima.
Passion. 12.8, approval of, oh, thank you so much. To approval of unaudited actual financial report for the fiscal year 2021. May I have a motion and a second to approve agenda item 1. Second. Any comments, questions? Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye.
Tima.
12.9, certificated substitute pay increase. May I have a motion and a second to approve agenda item number 12.9?
So moved.
Second. Any questions, comments? Member of panel.
I just want to thank you for doing this for our substitute for many reasons, because really, it's low, good starters, but also it's competitive. And hopefully in this time, so we really need extra teachers, supporters when our teachers are in and out due to reasons. It's nice to be able to attract and be with our students. So thank you for doing this. It's
Thank you. Trustee Guerrero?
Yeah, just curious, like as far as the comparables, how do we stand on that? And this is not just a phenomenon that's happening here in New Haven, within my own district. That I work for, Hayward Unified School District, we are desperate for subs. It's very difficult to get a sub, and assistant principals and principals are stepping, filling in the role and covering classes, and and I feel for these substitutes who have to go to various classes. they're more susceptible, and so this is definitely called for.
Is there any,
We can actually give you the comps across the district, but this brings us, I would say, into median comparable. I don't know, Mr. Meckler.
Yes, this brings us above the median. So right now, we're in the lower quartile, I'd say about 19 districts. We're in the lower, probably third, right? Right now, this is gonna put us above the median. So we're gonna be now at 200, which is what any of the top districts, probably like Oakland is being that much. Fremont always been that high. San Lorenzo, Pleasanton, they're all at 200. Livermore is a little bit above 200, 250, and now this puts us right there with them. And those are the districts that take a lot of our subs away. So this is really important for us to be competitive. Because many of the other districts on the lower end, we're at 160, 170, they're really not our competitors for subs. So this puts us right smack dab of the higher end.
And you're, it's 180 for, it's moving in favor of 180 and then long term of 200, right?
Right, it's right.
also actually for your information, sometime back, I think in your, trustee Enrollment, session, and we were not on the board at the time. We have, revised this, basically for the substitute, and we were asked to get this much at that time. But we did not approve, so I'm glad that it started. I was so happy when I saw this on that and that. We, as a board, we have just at the time that we need to up our game. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye. Aye. The item number 12.10, approval of the special education significant proportionality comprehensive coordinated early intervention services plan for 2021. May I have a motion and a second to approve the item number 12.10? Second. Any comments or questions or any, I know there's a information available already if you guys can, the stuff is available. Give a little bit of snapshot for the audiences maybe.
Yeah, this is just a renewal of the plan that we have to address the significant disproportionality that we have of African American special education students in the discipline that goes along with that. And this is a plan that was essentially, we brought to the board 2 years ago for approval. COVID happened and we weren't able to, there was a lot of, everything changed and now we're back to trying to implement this plan. So it's something that the board's seen before, actually approved before. It's been updated. We gave you a preview in the spring and then here it is back to the board for approval for this.
Thank you. Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye.
Tina.
Aye. Next is the constant agenda items, number 13. Are there any items on which trustees have questions or need clarification or would like to hold for separate vote? So may I have a motion and second to approve constant agenda items 13.1 through 13.20?
So moved.
Second. Roll call please.
Calderon,
Aye.
Canlis,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Ishihara,
Aye.
Glenn Mallory,
Aye. So the item number 14, there is nothing. Number 15 is assessment of the government procedures and the rules. Any comments on the rules? Just this year.
Yeah, one of the things that I think, we might want to think about, a little bit more smoothly is, today on action items, there were a couple items where there were already, discussions, within action items. It might make sense, for us to have the discussion if necessary, but not necessarily, if there are anything more to add. My own individual, I think, most of that would have been. I just say that it's a matter of.
Any other comments?
Same thing. Thank you.
So, I know when there are information items, there's action items. Sometimes, there is an impression from the board or the board in the public that, we are just, stamping whatever the represented to us. So I think it's, for me, I think that it's good if we can have some comments or questions in the public to it. But tell you.
Well, yeah, I think the point is, there's a couple of different options. One is bringing the information item or the board if they will talk about an issue. And then if, we can raise the motion in a second and during the discussion of that, during this discussion of that item, if for any other reason, anybody wants to jump in and discuss more, we'll do that, as opposed to actively and proactively probing staff for things that have already been covered during the presentation. That's just one board member.
Thank you. Your time is open. If there is no further comment, then we are moving on to the item number 16.1, which is board member request. Are there any requests from the members? I see trustee Gowers have raised her hand. Please.
This is just a thank you for the posting of in the day of whatever school that is. Just to continue doing that, I think it's exciting for parents and students to see their schools, that you're seeing what they're doing and letting the public know and communicating what's going on in our schools. Because we know what's going on, but not everyone knows. And so this is a good way of letting them know that the kids are actively engaged, they're having fun, they're back to school, and they're trying to be as normal as possible in the situation that we are in right now. So it's not really a request, but it's a continuation and a compliment of what we were doing already, and please continue. It's a wonderful thing.
Maybe that's your, the digital services department that you formed last year is finally starting to, and Mr. Mattis under his direction, that's one of the steps that we're.
Thank you so much.
If there is no further, you raised, trustee Ms.
Yeah, thank you. So I made a request in a previous, board meeting that would receive consensus to review our policy on transgender athletes, and I don't see it on here in the executive content where we have listed all of the items that have received consensus, and I can't seem to find it anywhere in the meeting notes. So I would like it to be noted that I made that request, and I'd like it to be in the list of the requests from the board because we did already receive consensus on this item.
Thank you, and that's, if we can add it there, and it is being agendized for our policy. So that, yes, we can reflect it there.
Trustee Michigan?
Yes. On the request from 6/15/21, we talked about aligning our cabinet staff from chief positions to assistant chief positions. Received information back saying that the prevailing pattern is assistant superintendent titles. Just wondering if what work needs to be done to align those titles more formally so that we have parity with other districts.
Yeah, that would be when contracts are renewed annually, that would be the perfect time to make that alignment, if that's the board wishes. I don't know, that would, it could be designated to the policy committee to make a recommendation to the board, or the board could provide directions to do it. I guess maybe, I don't know, whatever the board wishes, we could either bring it up when we do contract renewal, and at that time, we could have the policy committee look at it, and say that's a shift we want to make as well, and make a recommendation to the board, whatever is for.
So also at that time, because there was a discussion before, and board at the time decided to keep the titles the way they are. And there might be some background information, why they kept them the way they are. I do remember it, but I think I would like to know what staff has in their notes. So at the time, please remember to bring that information as well.
We can take a look and see if we can find it. I wasn't around when that happened.
Right. Yes.
Well, I think what we did then is not relevant. We didn't even vote on that one at all.
No. This is, way back, I think some years back.
I know, I was there.
Right, you were there.
So I think what, President Sharon is trying to propose is, if it's the will of the board, that we should somehow get it on the agenda either during contract renewal or after the policy committee made recommendation, or both. I mean, that's the question is when, it's not if.
One thing I remember at the time was the reason that we would like to have our superintendent, or the staff who has credentials, that's certificate, they can go into the assistant superintendent, the title. But CBO's title was kept CBO because of they don't possess in our district. I know in other districts, they don't mind. But at the time our board decided to have it because they have certificate employee, then their office was kept as CBO. I just want to let you know about this, that's all. But whatever board decides. That's it.
We can have the policy committee just take a quick look and make a recommendation where we can address those things. That's the best thing. I see a couple nods, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you,
Mr.
oh, sorry. Trustee Gonzalez.
Last, request here. And I'm thinking about and I can talk to, Dr. Thompson after this, more in depth, but I'm thinking about the Alameda County, the flow chart on safety in case a student does have COVID symptoms and just following the flow chart. Well, one of the things I want to ask about, if we can look into, is an incentive to get tested right away, because that would alleviate so much uncertainty and having to quarantine, or an incentive to get vaccinated. And again, that would stop the flow chart going any further, and that the time out of the classroom would just alleviate all those things. So I'm just, if you can look into some kind of incentive plan, possibly, and you can speak more on this at a later time. What can we do?
Excellent. Thank you so much for bringing it up.
Yeah, I think that's something we could probably, I'm not aware, at least I could, at the very least, ask around and find out if anybody else has any other creative ideas. I'll be in a meeting tomorrow with all the kind suits, and I can certainly explore that subject, see what's out there, see if we can come up with something good. It's the board, okay, I mean, that's normally supposed to get consensus, but I think that's, I'm agreeable with that. Seems reasonable. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, Trustee Kennedy.
Just a quick question in relation to Trustee Gonzalez's question regarding the flow chart. It seems to be the next step, seems to be the question I'm getting all over the place right now. I'm wondering, is that flow chart for teachers and parents posted in the classroom?
The flow charts, we get those flow charts directly from the Alameda County Public Health Department, and we have them on our website under the Alameda ECOE Public Health Office of Ed. Does a great job.
Right, I know that, but are they posted in the classroom?
No.
That seems to be the number one question. What now? What's next? I posted it myself too, because that's the question I keep on getting. What happens now?
The people that have those questions are typically the parents.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to see them in the classroom, obviously. So that's, the students seem to care, from what I've seen, a lot less about how that works. Staff, and they have access to it. We provide them with that. And whenever that's updated, we send out the updated version to staff. And then we also send it out to families too.
Okay.
So whether or not they look at it or not, I don't know. I sent it in my Friday update. In fact, it was updated 2 weeks ago. And I resent out that 2 weeks ago. When they updated the flow charts, said, hey, they're updated again, and here's the link. It's also on our website. So that is, I don't know of a better way to get it to them than that, because like I said, they're not going to see it in the classrooms, and then the teachers know exactly where to find it. So if you can think of a better way to get them that information.
I was figuring, if they were posted at the door, students will see it too, not just parents, and bring the information back to the parents. I mean, the students bring the information back to parents, so the kids are aware of what is going on and the next steps. It's probably going to be helpful and minimize the similar question over and over. I don't know, it's just, I know you're sending it already,
Here's the, one of the problems.
But-
That postmark has changed how many times? 4, 5, 6 times? And you post it, and you're gonna have to pull it down and print them all out, and repost them and print them out, and it changes so fast. The best way we can do is keep our links updated, and then get them out to everybody, send them out to students too. I mean, families get them, right? But printing and posting anything related to the COVID guidance right now is just a feeble effort.
I'm just trying to brainstorm ways and getting that information. I feel like a broken record. Keep on beating out, on the regular.
Just keep referring to the county document. They do an outstanding job of keeping the latest information curated in one place. And it's been that's been a shining spot throughout the pandemic as the county support that way.
Keep up the good work, everyone. Thank you.
So, is it safe to, I am sure that our teachers are trained to provide that information to the students and the families, then whoever ask your teacher.
Yeah, teachers have it. We send it out. It's available on our website and it's updated constantly. So that's the nice thing about that link is it goes directly to the most recent version of whatever's out there. And I'm in meetings every week with the county public health department and ACO. It's pretty unusual for a week to go by when they aren't providing
I
stuff.
understand that it's available on the website, and I already know that, and so does everyone, but it's still a question.
Yeah.
Trying to look at visuals, something that would stick on their head, and when they could look really quickly, but I get your point, it changes, and, it may not be valid the next day, so, and the amount of paperwork and time put into it, if it's no longer, correct information, is not a good use of time.
We can take a look when we're sending out our news and our updates to maybe do a more visually present job of presenting that to remind people. That's a recurring issue.
I don't want to create more work if it's not gonna be helpful. Do this.
Okay.
Or at least you can embed the link. Yeah.
We do that, but I'm thinking, we'll brainstorm a little bit, see if there's ways that we might be able to make that more prominent.
Thank you, trustee Candace, for bringing that up. So I was, okay, trustee Blizzard.
Yeah, I have one more. I forgot to officially request that we get something back from staff about, what the district can do to make drop off and pick up safer for our students. I know that you guys already talked about it, so, and some ideas, maybe we need to put in more drop off circles or whatever we need to do.
I know this is a constant conversation, so I can share at the board, if this is a board consensus, we can have the principals submit what they think would be their way to improve the traffic at their school. Every single principal would love to see traffic improve at their school. So I could get a list of what they think would be needed to do that. That's the will of the board.
I'm definitely for it, because I know how they use that. And I live that duty, after school, the drop off and stuff duty after school, including using this Mickey Mouse pen trying to direct traffic. And it changed, my name from all the other names they call me to something more fun. It's Disney, yeah, it is important, it is. Like, what is the
Yeah, it's a problem, and Pioneer Elementary and ladies, all the ladies traffic go through across Pioneer, and they have a constant,
Well, this is what I tell parents when I talk about this every year, which is you show me a school in California and I'm gonna show you a traffic problem. And that's the reality of it. Not that we can't try to make it better, but our schools were built in a time when kids walked to school. Nobody walks to school anymore, everyone drives drive to school. And that's not the city's fault, not the school's fault. It's just a problem that is existing everywhere, particularly in California. But we can put together a list of, kind of a wish list of, principals are they love talking about it.
They're asking us to do something about it. So, let's see. Okay, thank you so much. And, no more things, seeing no more agenda items, this meeting is adjourned.